Welcome back. I'm sorry. I'm not even prepared with the microphone. I'm Cameron Smith.
It's a radio show.
It's
you
radio.
have to talk.
It's live. We're talking. I have the best words for you today.
All the best words.
All the best words. Welcome to the Chad Benson Show. I'm excited to say that. Chad's obviously not here. I'm Cameron Smith filling in. Matt Murphy, the great one, has moved from noon to 3 to 3 to 7. So we've got a full afternoon lineup for you. The Drive with Brian Wilson has reached its final destination. So new lineup, rocking and rolling, getting you through. Hopefully some of you entered a food coma after Christmas, that sort of thing. I can talk about the news, but there's not really that much interesting news. I'll just be honest with you. So we're going to go through all the different items related to Christmas, New Year, that kind of thing over the next 3 hours so that we can have a good time. And hopefully it'll be entertaining, informative, that sort of thing. But I'm going to need your help on the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. You're up on the board. I can see you there. You also can call in and see what's going on. Bell's on the board. We've got, I believe, Ken back there with some news. Ken's trying to find positive news, folks, but right now the only news is people dying and getting killed in horrible ways.
Yeah, there's just some terrible stories out there today.
Right, and I don't want you to wind down 2024 with horrible, horrible news.
No.
Look, we've talked about New York. Stay away from the subway. You'll be fine.
Yes.
Probably won't be set on fire. Okay, that's what we know about. Jeffrey's been patient. A holdover from the Chris Hand show. I always like taking calls where I have no idea what it's about. It just says Jeffrey Old Hickory. So we're going to take it. Jeffrey, what you got going on?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah. My reasons against the administration and all the the drugs they brought in.
Well, say that one more time. You're breaking up a little bit on us.
I said my reasons for the administration, the ATS allowing all these ills and the gangs coming into our city and state, bring all their illegal, nasty drugs that they brought in.
Well, thank you, Jeffrey. I'm sorry, Jeffrey was a little bit broken up, but I heard him talk about immigration and the gangs and the drugs. Also bad things. We don't want that, but thankfully we have some great folks in Tennessee in law enforcement who keep us safe, especially over the holidays, and they're up and out and about while many of us are tucked safe away. So, that's what's going on. I've looked at a couple of the different reports, news articles and stuff. I've read the committee report about Matt Gaetz. I'll speak to this briefly because I do think it's interesting. The House Ethics Committee ultimately has released this report about Matt Gaetz and his behavior. Some of it's quite hilarious. Some of the text messages are fairly damning. But as much as I don't personally care for Matt Gaetz, let the law enforcement handle this. If he's committed statutory rape in Florida, let Florida prosecutors handle it. Let's do all that stuff. But the idea that a House committee will put out a report and it looks very, very bad, but law enforcement, if y'all recall, DOJ on the federal level had declined to prosecute Gaetz and presumably had the same access to this information. I want to see what other folks are going to do. So all that is to say, that was sort of the big news story before Christmas, the one that came out. It's a bombshell, if you will. I don't think so. I think it's take a look at it. It doesn't look good. Nobody actually thought Gaetz was a good dude, but whether or not he's committed crimes, if prosecutors don't prosecute, then he enjoys the presumption of innocence just like the rest of us. So I'll say that. I want to as I start every show, every time I fill in and all that stuff, I wanted to give you guys just a brief view into my background so I'm not just some disembodied talking head. And you know where I'm coming from. So my day job and what I do as a 9 to 5 is I work at Thanks, where we help folks grow business with gratitude. It's sending folks coffee for the week, a ride share for the holidays, just little things that say, hey, here's how I appreciate you. I also write for the Tennessean. I write a column over there where I really appreciate you guys not only communicating with me and telling me what you want me to write about, but reading my columns and sharing them. It matters a lot to me as a conservative over there in a legacy media operation. There's some great folks there. I'm also on the editorial board, so I get to meet with folks and hear what they have to say. The most recent editorial board meeting we did was with Senator Hagerty, and he was telling us about East Tennessee and how we can't forget those folks, even as FEMA and other folks try to help. We're the volunteer state. We do that stuff well. And so it mattered to have a senator not just wanting to talk about himself, talking about his thoughts and agenda, but saying, hey, you guys that write stuff, pay attention to these folks in East Tennessee. They've been through the ringer, and it's easy to forget about folks after a little while. And so I want any of y'all who have friends and family in East Tennessee and any of those who are listening online from East Tennessee to know you're not forgotten. Not as we go into 2025, we know you've been through a lot, and as you have needs, let us know so we can be helpful. I also am a partner in a media company. We've got the Ballad of Davy Crockett out. You can check it out, watch it, have some fun with your family, and not have to worry about Hollyweird being poured into your home. So that's the thing. Mason says he's out. He's waving at me, so I wanted to let you guys know that too. At D. Cameron Smith, at D as in David, Cameron Smith on Twitter, which is now X, and hashtag TN Politics. If you want to follow stuff, articles I put out, things like that, hashtag TN Politics is great. 1313 asked me, am I done with being called brah or bruh? Unfortunately, no. I have 5 sons between the ages of 10 and 15, and so brah is pretty regular. It's said sort of like those of us who are Alabama fans, we say roll tide, and it can mean everything to I'm sorry for your loss, to I'm very happy. It can mean anything.
Is it multi-use like bless your heart?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And brah is like bruh. It's just the inflection that changes the meaning according to my teenagers. So welcome to that. We'll be talking about them a lot in this show. They're currently, I think they just finished up with wrestling practice, so I like it. Let's see. How's the Ram truck treating you? Thank you for inquiring about the well-being of my truck. It is very large and great, and I love it so much. If not for the fact my wife would make me come inside, I'd probably sleep in it. It's pretty great. And I wash it more than I should and spend a lot of time. It is a zen thing for me to care for my truck. It's very exciting. So I appreciate you asking.
What's your oldest name?
Cam.
Okay. So here's how this is going to play out, and you're not going to argue with me over it because you can't.
Okay.
You're going to wash that truck until the new wears off, and then you're going to make Cam do it.
So this is actually one of my deals with my oldest, who I affectionately call the Beast, is we got him a car before he has his driver's license. So that was a Christmas thing for him. And I have to see that he demonstrates care for it over time so that he can drive it.
I don't think that's unfair.
No,
I'm talking about the maintenance on your car, the washing. You're washing it right now because you love it. It's your new truck. It's so exciting.
It is.
And you're going to hit a point where it's like, same old truck. Hey, Cam, wash this thing.
Well, we do mass washings. We have mom's car, my car, and now the new car. And we have to get out there and wash them. But when 5 boys and I get out of there, there's 6 of us, we're like our own little car wash, literally. Like, we can go fast. And so I break out the pressure washer and I have a foam cannon and it gets wild in our driveway, but we get a lot of car washed real fast.
See, but you're trying to play this off like it's a family event. And we both know it's not going to be a family event because you're going to get tired of doing that. And you're just going to be like, Cam, wash the cars.
No, I have.
Wait a minute, Dad, I thought we did that as a family. Yeah, we used to wash the cars.
So I am a firm believer that if I'm going to make you do it, I'm doing it. So we have forced family fun time where I'm there. And as long as I'm there, the rule is if I'm working, you're working. And
Of course it is.
they hate that rule. They're like, can we go now? Am I gone? No. Okay. And Dad, stop. I need you. We need you to stop so we can stop. Is it done? No. Well, then let's finish. Let's finish strong. I've said that a lot already over the holidays. But that's kind of where we are. 0407 was commenting on the bruh and said, I used to be the same way with saying dude. And we all know that one. That's
Well,
more,
yeah. I mean, dude, if you look it up in the dictionary, dude means male friend in the dictionary. When you're using it in real life, it means everything.
Yeah.
Dude. It's like me going, hey. And I'd be like, dude. It's like, oh, man, you screwed up.
That's kind of like Gen X's bro.
Yeah.
It's like, dude. And we all know that. What the other phrase my oldest likes to use is low key. He'll just say low key and then say what he wanted to say. Low key, bro. That's rough. Low key. What does that even mean?
Loki, got a mischief.
Right. No, not said like that, but yes. I mean, equally as useful. This is constant. And now that I'm in my 40s, I'm working to translate the language of the young. And oh my goodness, it's probably because they text all the time with their buddies. And if you're an observant parent that has access to your child's devices and you have teenagers right now, you're probably getting dumber because you're watching these text exchanges, particularly if you have sons. Because my son's text exchange with his buddies goes something like this. Sup, bro. Skirt. Yeet. Sup. And that's the entire exchange.
Wait a minute. We got no. What were they talking about?
That's the point, Bell. It is a greetings and salutations, friend. Return greetings to you in ways. Random sounds. Excellent. And that's the whole thing. And okay, I like that. Okay. But that's where I am. Where we are is we need to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about this a little more. This is the Chad Benson Show, and I'm Cameron Smith on Super Talk 99.7.
Looks like there is a fire on I-24. Where else? Sparking emergency response in Nashville. This is near the Silliman Evans Bridge. We'll give you some details on that. Also, getting reports of some violence at a Kroger distribution center in Tennessee. Details on that coming up at 12:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Chad Benson Show. I'm Cameron Smith. I'm so used to saying the Matt Murphy Show that, I'm gonna have to get used to this one. But Matt is still here in the Matt Murphy Show, 3 to 7. You should definitely hang out, check in with him. But those of you who haven't had a chance to listen to Chad yet, he's fantastic. It's truly exciting, and the lineup that the main lineup that Super Talk has for this coming year, I think is going to be great. We run the spectrum. If you have any number of conservative-leaning libertarian viewpoints, we're going to have it on the air, and it's going to be super exciting. I like being the man off the bench, but I'm very, very excited about what's there. And Chad doesn't mess around. Some of you guys, we're going to have some back and forths, and I think that's going to be great for us. So very, very excited about that.
All I know is the man's brought me free lunch twice, so he's in my good graces for a very long time.
Yes, food will get Bell to do a lot of things. I've watched it.
Whatever you say, Brother Chad.
Absolutely, I agree. How could I not?
Yes, and I'll have both of you guys know that my wife texted me hearing about the truck washing protocol and said, I never got tired of washing my other truck. And so that's true. She texted me and said, no, he will wash that truck indefinitely. And I will.
I don't believe that. I think you're going to hit a point, especially with the last one, where you start getting empty nesters concerns, and you're going to be like, I can't let my boy leave until he's washed the truck just one more time.
Well, the little beast is actually already angling for the truck. So,
for when he turns 16?
Right. Okay. He's like, Dad, so it'll be a while. You'll be ready for a new truck. That can be my truck. I'm very excited about this truck. And so he's already at 10 put his designs on this truck. He's figured, I think it'll still be around, and I would like it. So he'll wash that.
I got to say, it's pretty good parenting to have him thinking that far ahead at that age.
Yeah.
Cameron, do whatever you can to stay off of I-24 so your son gets his dream.
Yeah, no kidding. That is absolutely true. The little beast also, for Christmas, he got a guitar.
All right.
And he...
Gibson Les Paul?
Not quite. Well. Where in anything with an amplifier in my house is a terrible idea. Right?
we got Fender and Gibson in this town, man. You should have you got to support the locals.
Well, and we'll get there. But Hey Smith, that's his nickname. That's what everybody calls him. He told me beforehand. He said, Dad, because Mama makes him take piano, right? So they're having to learn to master the piano so they can play it. And he just told me, he said, Dad, I just really with the piano I don't feel like singing. But if I get a guitar, I'm probably going to have to sing.
You got to convince him that he wants to do both, though, man. That would make when he gets to high school and he can play both.
Oh yeah,
get out of here.
He has said. I've told all the boys this. I'm like, guys, if you can sit down at a piano and just play, like that.
Girls from everywhere.
And Belle has discovered the motive that I've. I really want to be a reasonable parent and talk about create value for yourself and opportunity and all of the blah, blah, blah. That's what they hear is blah, blah, blah. But when I say, if you do this thing, girls will think it's cool, they'll do it 100% of the time.
Yeah.
100%. So in my family right now, almost everything I try to tie back to, and women like it. And if that is indeed true, they will do that. And
in my head, I can hear you using that tactic to get them to put their clothes in the hamper, and they're like, whatever.
Yeah. It's what I use to make video games less interesting. I said, how many of you guys think there's a woman out there who's been like, man, I wish this dude knew how to play more video games.
And there's definitely a woman out there going, will you please pick up your socks?
Right. And so I just tell the boys that. And then I ask in front of their mother, and I say, hey, Justine, have you ever been like, I wish you would play more video games to me? Ever? Well, no, Absolutely not. I think it's weird. And that reinforces to them, like, okay, we like it and it's fun, but like this is not a women will like it activity. Whereas working hard and doing difficult things, that can be persuasive. And they're learning this, but I'm not one of these people who has, well, I need you to like doing it because you respect me. I'm like, I just want you to do the right thing and work hard for whatever reason. So when I've got a motive that will get you going, okay, let's roll. And I told him years ago, I was at a bar in Texas, and it was a dueling piano bar. And it was one of the coolest things that I had ever seen. And I told the boys about it. I've told them repeatedly that just to be able to sit down at a piano and have somebody play something, and then you play something that's even more awesome, and then they go, and it actually works. My boys have very much been like, hey, we should do this. They've been taking piano lessons from Leah Taylor for years, and it's something I wish I would have done. And because they all do it, it makes them feel like they're not, they're like, well, none of my friends on the football team are doing it. Okay, fine. Your brothers are. And because that's happening, they've loved it and they've learned a ton.
None of the kids on the football team want to get girls, apparently.
That's funny, Bill, but it's kind of true. And to me, it's, be big, fast, and strong, play sports, do those things, but be a bit of a renaissance man. You need to be able to do a lot of different things. And now that Hey Hey has a guitar, y'all watch out, Country Music USA. Like, there's a new guy coming, and he's looking at Luke Bryan and all these guys, and he's ready to start singing. And he is a heck of a little football player, but man, he when he sings and he doesn't think anybody's watching, it's awesome. When people are watching, he kind of tones it down a little bit, and he's like, ruh, 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 ruh. But man, when he doesn't think anybody's watching, when he's like in his bedroom by himself, it is so cool. So he's got a guitar and he's ready to go, and I'm excited. It's a big deal. 0338 said, as a band and music teacher for 25 years, yes, learn the piano. It transcends all of the other instrument and teaches your ear as well as learning how to read music.
Yeah, and if you can play piano, because it's obviously a two-handed instrument with both of them actually playing notes versus a strumming hand, that's going to make you so much more competent at every other instrument that you want to pick up. I completely agree with this guy.
And that's
or girl, 0338.
That's what my wife says. So we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on Super Dog 99.7.
All right, drivers in Williamson County, you got a crash blocking the left lane, 65 northbound right there at June Lake. And then the left lane is blocked southbound at June Lake. And a fire burning between Driftwood Street and I-24 in Nashville sparked an emergency response. Fire crews went to the area after receiving various calls. A spokesperson described it as an outside fire, possibly from an area under the Silliman-Evans Bridge there. You got the full forecast coming up in 5 minutes, where we're going to hear about a possibility of severe storms. Right now in Tennessee, we're monitoring reports out of Memphis about a stabbing at a Kroger distribution center that killed one person. Here in Nashville, some people woke up to find their vehicles underwater today. The Ludlow Condominium Complex in North Nashville, the water main break. One of at least 5 affecting Metro Water Services customers blamed Metro Water Services blaming the weather for the breaks. They say when it gets real cold and then warms up fast, it's pretty hard on those water pipes. Bad news in Loudoun County, Tennessee. 250 people going to be laid off by a walk-in van manufacturing plant. The Morgan Olson LLC notifying the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development they're going to start the layoffs February 11th. Officials working to make sure affected employees have access to resources and assistance. The company, based in Sturgis, Michigan, employs more than 600 people at its plant there in Loudoun County. Crews have recovered the flight data recorder from that deadly plane crash Christmas Day in Kazakhstan. Investigators say they're examining all possible scenarios as they search for a cause. A U.S. official telling ABC News early indications are that a Russian anti-aircraft system may have struck that jet. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Welcome back to the Chad Benson Show. I'm Cameron Smith, holding it down after Christmas. We're talking about, well, a little bit of everything. We were talking about music and piano and guitars and all the things that are good for kids. Speaking of kids, one of the things that I talk about regularly on the air and in my columns over at the Tennessean is kids and technology. And I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to handle a situation, and so maybe some of you guys can help me out. Super Talk text line 615-737-9986. So all of the schools that I'm familiar with, the public schools now, almost all of them do laptops. They issue laptops to the kids, and the kids take them home. Well, one of the downsides with those laptops is all the security and everything on them goes through the technology at the school system level. So, for example, I live in Williamson County. Williamson County Schools IT department controls those laptops. And the idea is, well, they're secure and there are firewalls and things like that to stop kids from objectionable content. So you can, I guess, in theory, trust that, hey, when they have their laptops, they're doing their schoolwork. That's the theory. So, long story short, that means you can't put your own firewall software, your own network stuff on the school laptop. All the other devices in my house connect to my network, and I have the ability to kind of check on them, prevent some of the objectionable stuff. I have 5 boys in my house between the ages of 10 and 15. I can tell you they uniformly will try to look at stuff they probably shouldn't. That's not shocking. That's teenage boy.
Yeah, that's what we did that.
Everyone.
You and I did
that. Yes. There's nothing here. Here's also what I know. There's pretty robust science right now on the impact of pornography on brain development. Yeah, it's real. And this one, let's take away the argument of how we feel about the morality of pornography. I get it. I understand that consenting adults can consume all kinds of stuff. I'm very much more libertarian on that. The challenge for developing brains, and that when I say developing brains, I mean prefrontal cortex has not fully matured. That's all the boys in my house right now. The impact of pornography on everything from sexual norms to gray matter volume, all the different stuff, it's all bad. It is not good to be mainlining this stuff as a minor. I'll draw the line right there. As a minor, it is bad for them, objectively. That doesn't mean they're not going to try to pull it in. So what happened in our house is I realized, wait a minute, something's not right. Either they're doing a heck of a lot of homework or something's going on. And knowing what I know about young men, because I've been one, I kind of figured something was wrong. And then finally, one of them fessed up to, hey, we figured out how to get around the firewall. And it took them it was probably 13 steps on their school computer, but they breached the firewall. And they could look at porn or whatever else they wanted to. And I mean, it was elaborate, but it took them about 48 seconds. I know because I videoed it and timed it and sent it to the school and said, hey, what's going on here? I thought you said these devices were safe and that you blocked all the objectionable stuff. And the response I got was, well, sorta.
The response was, well, what do you expect us to do when 1 billion social security numbers are leaked?
Right.
This is just the standard working conditions in government. They're going to fail somewhere at some point.
Right. And so the school pointed to Williamson County Schools IT and said, we are aware of these vulnerabilities. And I said, well, then why don't you tell me about it? Well, okay.
We forgot.
It's sort of, if you're selling a myth, then that's a problem. If you say, hey, we're giving kids these laptops, our whole educational system is predicated on this technology. So yeah, they can get around the firewall, but this is where we do all this stuff. So suck it up. If you want to say that, that's fine. I can at least engage then and say, okay, now what? But I don't know how the ability, if my son can do that and get through the firewall, that means he learned it from somebody, which means this is common knowledge at the high school. And so this to me is one of the reasons why I'm deeply suspicious of all the technology in the classroom. I love technology. I'm pro technology. It gives us so much capacity. It reduces human suffering. But in this case, I'm actually of the opinion that the technology in the classroom that's attached to the students reduces their learning capacity. It takes away from the learning environment because it's distracting. It's not just, hey, can you do your assignments? And I understand why that's convenient for educators and other folks. But I compare and contrast that with some of my kids who are still in New Song Christian Academy, and they do paper stuff, books, paper assignments. Now, the teachers can teach with technology, but they are not giving the kids laptops and saying all your assignments and everything are here. And that's something that very much concerns me. And I'm not upset with the school. The school has been excellent and is wonderful and great to deal with. I have no problem with that. But to tell me, hey, you can't mess with this and you can't put your own stuff on this device, but oh yeah, we know that kids can get around these firewalls and get through it. Well, you need to tell all the parents and let parents make their own decisions about this technology. And the fact that you really can't just say no to the technology. As a parent, I can't just say, I want paper assignments and books, because that's just not the way the system is going. And I think legislators, policymakers need to take a real tough look at a lot of the technology in the classroom and really be intentional about it. I think that the cell phones, they have some of the zipper pockets in some of the classes, but it's hit or miss. They need to put those phones in those zipper pockets on the back of the door every class, because kids sitting there with devices, again, it distracts from the learning process. We're making our kids dumber and less equipped. And that's a huge problem. And yes, I'm aware that there's capacity to, I'm watching the super text line, so I want to be clear about who I'm addressing. 4870 says, bro, you can circumvent content filtering at Cumulus Network too. That's true. But I'm not required when I'm here to have a device that I can't touch it all anywhere else. And that's what has me a little bit concerned about this setup. One, I know that content is bad for minors. I am able to demonstrate pretty clearly that it's a hindrance, and I can't do anything about it. Well, that's a big deal. And I think Williamson County schools and other schools that have the same challenge need to be honest about it and say, yeah, we've decided that technology is so unbelievably important in the classroom that you don't have a choice and you can't really do anything about it. And if your kid's smart enough to get around the firewall, well, so be it. I don't think that's I don't like that at all. I think it's a huge problem. John in Nashville is talking about school tech. What you got, John?
Man, what a sore subject that you brought up. I'm riding down the road, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, he's kind of telling my story. So my son is a student in Sumner County and was issued an iPad. And my wife and I, my understanding was this was something for my child to use to accomplish his homework and his study skills.
Yep.
And he had recently been grounded and his electronics taken away simply because of his curiosity. Well, you know, he winds up getting this iPad, bringing it home, and within a week we get a phone call that says that we need to meet at the school in Sumner County and that they are looking into suspending and prosecuting my son because he had figured out a go-around using a VPN network at our house, but yet he found a loop in the logging in process to where he could actually watch. And look, there's a lot of parents out there, but my son is human, and he looked at a porn site, and then he snapshotted it, and then he sent it to another student, and therefore it became a big mess simply because he sent a text in a picture form. And so my son is again, he's a boy, he's human, So I went to, even after the meeting at school, I said, my son will not bring his tablet home again. And it caused a big ruckus over this. And it's just like, how can I protect my own child? I take his electronics away. He's been grounded. I mean, I can only teach him so much. But then what if the school supplies him with something that's not really safe? So great subject. I'm going to hang up, listen to your comment. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Yeah, that's kind of my point. And some of you pointed out that you can have protection on your Wi-Fi even if we don't install anything natively. Yes, that is true. However, what I'm realizing is we've created a situation that we can avoid. And I'm not saying this has been a problem for 1,000 years, right? Everybody knows this. The issue here is the volume and the nature of what's available now. When I was a kid, it was, well, you found a Playboy or something like that, and there was a stash, and you could look at it or what. Okay, fine. The nature of what's out there right now on a developing brain is bonkers. So the damage that can be done from this stuff is quite high. My argument is that the value of this is relatively low. And we need to just stop it. Just stop. We started with the thesis that technology is uniformly good for the kids. And that will help them learn more because they'll use their technology. And I just don't believe that that's true. Now, 1853 said, when home, can laptops only be used at the kitchen table with adult present, and when not in use, be plugged up in a monitored area? Well, it won't fix it, but it'll stop late nights in the room. Yeah, sure. Yes, absolutely. And we do that. And we're very clear about that. And I also am open with my boys about this in saying, guys, I know you're going to have a drive to consume this stuff, but it's bad for you. It will hurt you. You can read the articles about, and it goes to our other conversation about, what women like. If you read the articles about impotency in teenagers because they're just mainlining this stuff. And so, yeah, we can do that, but I don't know about you parents, but there's plenty of devices everywhere. And so it is difficult to constantly be trying to monitor and protect. And it's not that I don't think there's accountability for young men. I absolutely do. Making good decisions, avoiding rough stuff. We'll continue the conversation. We got to take a break right now. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to The Chad Benson Show on Supertalk 99.7.
We're following reports of workplace violence in West Tennessee. Details coming up at 1 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Chad Benson Show. I'm Cameron Smith, filling in. So we've been talking about technology and schools and what's going on. I just pulled up one of these articles from the National Institute of Health. Here's a quote from the abstract. Quote, taken together, these findings show that stressful experiences, anxiety, and depression are strongly related to pornography consumption. In addition, conflicting emotional experiences as well as identity problems significantly increase vulnerability to addictive sexual behavior and pornography consumption. There's a million articles like this. If you guys think for a minute that this is your daddy's Playboy that I'm talking about, The volume and nature of what can be consumed right now is significant. And so my request is schools need to be painfully honest with parents on this front, acting as if, hey, this technology is totally innocent, it's totally safe. The number of parents in countless schools who are saying, well, the school's got this under control. No, they don't. That's basically the message that was conveyed to me when I inquired about it. Was, no, we know there's security vulnerabilities. We know kids can figure this out and get around it. And that was it. It was just, we know.
So they're basically just doing what they are doing for show.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it is very much this technology is good. It is good for your kid. It is good for, no, it's not.
If your kid can break our encryption, we'll give him a scholarship. So I guess you're owed a scholarship.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not even like that. This is not like they're having to learn to code to break down these defenses. They're just clicking links in a sequential order that any teenager can tell somebody else. And again, I'm not condemning the teenager's behavior or removing their accountability. I'm simply saying the schools need to be honest about it so that parents can understand what they're dealing with. And then, like some of the users suggested, you need to make sure that you're doing the work at the kitchen table, that this stuff doesn't go behind closed doors. Because the answer is you're not working on your homework for 4 hours from midnight to 3 a.m. That's just not a thing. We need to be a little more vigilant. But I think, in fairness to a lot of parents, they didn't know. They just assumed it's okay. And it's not. And some of y'all who have more of a tech background are trying to explain the dynamics on the Super Talk text line and talking about how vulnerable these systems are. And I think the answer is, well, if you're going to insist that this is an unmitigated good, then, man, you need to have IT departments that are top-notch, who are actually able to shut down a lot of this and actually secure these systems. Because if somebody can pop up a VPN and get around stuff, then that ain't that complicated. You don't need to be a tech genius. And this has always been the case that kids are better at technology than adults. They adapt, they engage quicker. But we just need to stop pitching the fiction.
I don't even know if it's that kids necessarily have the understanding on how to do this. But when you tell a teenage boy that there's boobies on the other side of this firewall, that teenage boy is probably going to be like, I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah, they're freaking motivated. I mean, and I get that. I am not confused about that at all. But, I mean, here's the deal. The nature of what's out there, let's just be honest before we take the break on what this is. It's unrealistic sexual expectations, distorted perceptions of content, negative body image, relationship difficulties. We can go down the list. This is what's on the other end of that firewall. That's really what's there. And it ain't great. We can talk about this a little bit more on the other side. We've got 2 more hours to go and miles before we sleep. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Chad Benson Show. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
1 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Understand we have the potential for some severe weather on the horizon. Right now in Tennessee, a man is dead after getting stabbed at a Kroger distribution center in Memphis this morning. One person has been detained by police there. Right now in Nashville, a series of water main breaks impacting hundreds of Metro Water Service customers. This man tells Channel 4 about people's cars with water to the top of their tires at the Ludlow Condominium Complex parking garage in North Nashville.
I've never seen anything like this. I mean, it was on our Facebook page this morning, but yeah, I mean, a lot of cars are definitely affected.
Metro Water Services blaming the weather. They say when it gets real cold and then warms up fast, it's bad news for pipes. 4 years since the devastating Christmas Day bombing downtown, and more of the area has reopened to traffic. The south block of 2nd Avenue now open to vehicles with widened sidewalks and safer crosswalks, too. Welcome news, but business owners like Frank Miller, whose shops were blown out, tell Channel 4 the recovery ongoing.
People are just trying to figure out how to get around. I have to say, out of all of it, this past year has probably been the hardest. Now that it being open as of this past week, it's the beginning and not the end of us, healing. And I think we're all ready for it.
Yeah, construction continues on the portion of 2nd Avenue damaged the most. And for the first time in nearly 20 years, Christmas Day is lining up on the first day of Hanukkah. And Mayor Freddie O'Connell, that is, commemorated it in Bellevue.
I am very lucky. I feel that I'm very lucky that I grew up in a household where I learned the Hanukkah blessing. This is a very special honor because it reflects my childhood, reflects my heritage, and I'm glad to be surrounded by family who carry on the tradition of Judaism.
Well, investigators are examining the flight data recorder from the deadly crash Christmas Day in Kazakhstan. A U.S. official telling ABC News there are early indications a Russia anti-aircraft system may have hit the Azerbaijan Airlines jet, and the carriers still flying to Russia may now be having second thoughts. Here's Ines de la Cuterra at the Foreign Desk.
He says there are ways to mitigate the risks, for example, flying in the daytime as opposed to nighttime, because all drone kind of activity happens at nighttime. But I do think there are going to be companies rethinking their routes here, and you're probably going to be seeing in the coming days companies suspending their flights to Russia.
That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Welcome back to the second hour of the Chad Benson Show. If you can't tell, the punk rock is new. And it's a good look. I like it.
All Chad all the time.
All Chad all the time.
For those of you that haven't seen him, Chad has Johnny B's beard, Dan Mandis' scalp, and his own taste in music. Plus, he's very tatted out, too. So that makes me feel more comfortable.
The first time I met Chad, he just showed up, and I was hosting this show, and he just sat down. And I had no idea who this guy was, and I thought somebody from a biker gang had wandered in off the street and had decided to do radio.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So I was like, hello, person. And that's how I met Chad. So that's very real. Okay, I want to wind down this conversation about technology in schools. And the basic is to say, we've been dealing with minors trying to chase after pornography for, I don't know, all time. The nature and volume of stuff that's out there is significant, and these school systems are not being forthright about what's reality. So I think, provided that my wife is okay with it, I've got a short video showing all of those steps that I think I'm going to post later today so that you can see exactly what's happening and that parents can know. Because if the school systems aren't going to tell parents, I'm happy to. And you can follow me at D Cameron Smith, D as in David, Cameron Smith, or just hashtag TN Politics. But if you follow me, I'm going to post that video later this afternoon, provided that I can get it off my wife's phone. And that's where you can see it. And I'd love to know what y'all think. I'd love to know, for some of y'all on the Super Talk text line with a tech background, of what's actually happening with all the different clicks that they're making. But the bottom line is that my son learned it from somebody else. So this is common knowledge because teenagers speak to each other. And whether it's pornography or other content, don't tell me about your library issues if we're not going to address this one. You know, conservatives have spent so much time on our public libraries and ensuring that there are no objectionable books in those libraries. Welcome to 2024, where it's in your house and public institutions are putting it in your home. And if you think that's the deal, then you need to pay attention. And yes, 4870 said, depending on the content, you need to be careful about posting public advice and how to circumvent technology enforcing school policies. That's probably fair, but at the end of the day, the school needs to deal with it. The school system needs to deal with it. And the fact that kids are sharing all of those things should be evidence of that. And so I hear you, and again, it's on my wife's phone, but this is common knowledge. And so coming up with a good game plan to address it, I've learned that public pressure really does make things change faster than anything else. And so Williamson County Schools IT department, we should talk, because I think we need an answer here. And as far as legislators go, whether it's Jack Johnson or William Lamberth or Cameron Sexton, I want some answers from legislators as to whether we've actually know that we're getting the results we need from technology in the classroom, or whether this is a failed experiment that everybody was, frankly, making too much money off of to admit that maybe it wasn't best for the kids. Let's just call a spade a spade. That's the reason the technology is in the classroom, is there are a lot of folks who can make money from it. And so they do. But that, to me, says we have a problem and we need to deal with it. And so if the legislatures and our elected officials and Governor Lee can't tell us that this technology is actually producing better educational outcomes for kids and really defend it, then we should get rid of it. Trust me, kids will know how to use technology. The idea that kids won't know how to use technology because we don't have it in the classroom, so they won't be equipped, that is a paper tiger, folks. Kids know how to learn technology quicker than any of us. So I just wanted to sort of put a pin in that. We can talk about it a little bit more later, but the bottom line is something has to happen. 1831 raises another point. Next topic I wanted to kind of move to. Do you have any excitement for January 20th, the inauguration? I am cautiously optimistic. How about that? I think there are a lot of good intentions.
I have it on the best of authority, though, that Mike Pence will not be certifying the election.
I do not think that will be the case. Am I excited about inauguration? No, I don't really. I mean, inauguration itself doesn't really matter to me. It's pomp and circumstance. I'm optimistic about reining in the federal government. I'm cautiously optimistic because I just don't think it happens. Everybody says they want to do the thing. We've got Doge now. It's like a special version of GAO and other things we already have. And they're going to tell us how we can really right-size government and rein it in. Well, here's the problem. Everybody says that, but then when you have to cut a program that benefits people, which is almost every federal program, and you're told you're killing, fill in the constituency, then most folks start saying, is it worth it? And the answer is, yeah, we really do need to rein into the federal government. The fact that we're running deficits nearing $2 trillion in the post-COVID era. We're 14% of our federal spending is debt service. It's paying the net interest year over year. Yeah, we do need to cut stuff, but there's no the programs that are like, I don't know, kitten punting is my favorite example. There's no government program that's like, well, we're taking this money and using it to learn how to punt kittens more effectively. There's a lot of dumb things, but there's a very few malicious things, and there's a lot of things that are very expensive and inefficient supporting different groups of Americans. That's the big problem, right? Is we've got something that we can tell a positive story about that's inefficient and way more costly than it should be. And so that's what always hits these efficiency efforts. I'm very concerned that we've been sold a bill of goods from Republicans on fiscal responsibility. The fact that Trump was basically telling everyone, I'd like you to get rid of the debt ceiling for a couple years. That'd be super neat. Well, raise your hand out there or text me on the SuperTalk text line, 615-737-9986, if you think that's a sign that somebody's planning on being fiscally conservative. My read on that is no. That is not a promising development. It doesn't encourage me to thinking we're going to make fiscally responsive decisions because I've got somebody telling me I need you to get rid of that debt limit thing that's really annoying for a couple of years. So, yeah, I'm still optimistic, but I've watched this show several times now. And I understand there's a lot of Republicans who want to believe that, well, Donald Trump is unique in the world and he's going to solve these things because no other regular politician could. Okay.
Trump actually added more to the debt than any other president in history.
Yes.
That is fact. I mean, you can just say that's good, it's bad, it's fact. And if you've got him having said in a press conference, I remember it like yesterday when one of the budgets came through, he said, this is, we have to do it because it funds the military, whatever. The military's never had a funding problem. They have a choosing problem. And then he's if he signs another one of those kind of bills, then he's basically broken his promise that he made that he would never sign another one in that like that in his press conference.
Yeah, and that's where we find ourselves. I mean, if you guys out there in Radio Land can't realize that we've been doing the same thing repeatedly. Trump's already had 4 years in office, and they weren't even close to fiscally responsible. And you can start explaining why and say, well, hey, here we go. This is the reason why. This is the reason why. This is the reason why. And that's just, you're making excuses. Let's just be honest about what that is. The deals that we have here's what happened to Mike Johnson in this last funding go round is he pushed through a CR with $100 million in disaster relief and a continuation of the Farm Bill. That's what they were going for, and he wanted to kind of spell some of that stuff out. Well, the Senate wasn't going to play ball anyway, and the House, Republicans aren't a monolithic bloc. They just aren't. Not anymore. The Republican coalition that elected Trump runs the gamut. You have pro-life, pro-choice, fiscally responsible, folks that want to spend like they're drunk. I mean, Republicans are all over the place. And so you have a handful of Republicans, I'll call them the budget hawks. A lot of them are in the Freedom Caucus, and they just say no. Okay, cool, that sounds good. But you can't just say no in a high-stakes moment, which is what a lot of them do. You've got to have a game plan to pass these appropriations bills out of the House, pass them out of the Senate, and then then have the president sign them. That's how you solve all of this stuff, is what we call regular fiscal order. We pass the appropriations bills, and that's it. Well, that's just not happening.
Well, another thing that we never do is where I always talk about we've got to get the debt under control. We have to control these deficits. Well, that's all well and good, but you can't fund everything forever and expect the deficits or the debt to come down. They never bother to come in and say, hey, look, we've decided that the ATF is a redundant agency. We got Homeland, we've got FBI, we've got CIA. We're going to phase them out. And here's how we're going to do it. Yeah. And then because as soon as you do that, people are like, oh my God, no, we can't live without that. It's like, well, we're going to have to live without something if you want to get this under control.
Well, and some of this stuff is kind of funny to me, like the deal with the Department of Education. Well, we're going to get rid of the Department of Education, and everybody, either loves that or hates that. And they say, yeah, we're going to do this. You know how much federal education funding accounts for in state budgets? It's about 10% of education funding. 10%. 90% of it comes from the states already. So the answer is Republicans are like, well, here's the deal. Here's how we're going to dissolve the Department of Education. We're going to get rid of the bureaucracy, but we're going to keep the same funding levels. All right. That means you got rid of a building and some government jobs, but then you just dumped it to the states. Okay. And Larry's right. Larry on the Super Talk text line says regular order has been gone most of my life. Yeah, it has. In fact, I'm going to pull it up, and we're going to talk about that when we come back. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Chad Benson Show, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Still monitoring reports of workplace violence in West Tennessee. One person dead after a stabbing. 250 pink slips going out in East Tennessee at a manufacturing plant. We'll tell you about that story coming up at 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Chad Benson Show. I'm Cameron Smith. I'm super excited about Chad joining the lineup because my man is going to melt some snowflakes. And I am very excited about that. The punk rocker, devil may care attitude on talk radio is glorious. And I think some of you guys are going to really, really enjoy it. There's a lot of listeners who will join because of Chad's style. And then some of you will melt because you're not very resilient. And that's great. And then once Chad melts the snowflakes, then you get to deal with Matt from 3 to 7. And I'll tell you what, it's a brave new world. I'm very, very excited about the lineup. I think it's great. There's something for everybody, and everybody's going to get challenged, which is awesome. That's how it should be. Speaking of challenges, it's really tough funding the federal government. I want to talk specifically.
Especially if you're the one being taxed.
Right. No. That part's easy. We do the tax easy. Taxes, no problem. The whole, do we spend it? And the answer is just yes. But how we spend it is hilarious. So I'm looking at, there are 12 appropriations bills through what we call regular order. And again, I just want you guys to know this. Agriculture, CJS or Commerce, Justice, and Science, Defense, Energy and Water, Financial Services, Homeland Security, Interior Environment, Labor, HHS, Education, Legislative Branch, the one they call MILCON, it's Military Construction, Veterans Affairs, State Foreign Operations, Transportation, HUD, Housing and Urban Development. Those are the 12 bills that normally you'd have 12 of these, at least I say normally. It's not typical these days, but under, I believe it's the Budget Control Act, this is how you're supposed to do it. And the bills are separate. You know why that's useful? Because we don't shut down the whole dang thing when we can't agree on one thing. And that's by design. This makes total sense. You know how many the Senate passed for fiscal year 2025? Bell, do you have a guess?
Are you talking about the CR or the...
No, I'm talking about regular appropriations bills. There's 12. How many out of 12 did the Senate pass?
Was it 3?
0.
Oh, seriously?
0.
That does not surprise me. Great job, Mike Johnson. Let us down some more.
Well, that's Senate. How many did the House out of 12?
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. That was that one 3?
That was actually 5.
5, okay.
But I don't know about you, but 0 and 5 are well short of 12. And
no, if you
it's true, Bell.
No, if you do political math, that pretty much breaks even.
Political break-even math. Niner. There's a 9er in there. Well, this is the truth. 5 out of 12 in the House, 0 out of 12 in the Senate. That is how good our Congress is at doing its basic task. And then we get these CRs and omnibus and stuff like that. And then we wonder, why is it happening? Well, because they can't figure out how to do their job without tremendous pressure like a shutdown. 2024, we did a little better. The House did 7 of 12. The Senate did 3 of 12. 2023, the House did 6 of 12. The Senate did 0. 2022, House did 9 of 12. Senate did 0. Let's just pick an arbitrary year in the past. How about 2009? Well, then we had actually 12 and 12.
Don't believe it.
I can show you. Now, here's the deal and the way they're doing it. We had they ultimately, even if they pass out of each house, they still have to be passed in the other house, and they have to be signed. Well, you guys know basic civics. That's what slows stuff down, is because if the House is under one party's control, the Senate's under another party's control, they don't want to agree. Get over it. It's your job. But this is the problem, is when we want the federal government to do anything, they're just inefficient and wasteful. And then we're sitting there. I watched it on X. I saw it. I had farmers are a national security concern, meaning that if we don't subsidize farmers, then we're doing something wrong. I've worked on a lot of farms. I love farmers. The fact that we provide insurance subsidies and things like that the way we do is absolutely stupid. We need to, if you want to have a farm bill, let's have a farm bill and discuss how we need to handle this. Because right now we pick some farmers that we subsidize stuff for and others we don't. And we just need to be honest about that. And what happens is every time we start talking farm bill, people are, why do you want to kill the farmers?
We actually, when it comes to the farm bills and what we subsidize, we pay farmers to not grow stuff. That is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard of in my life.
If you look at the insurance subsidies, the milk stop-loss programs, I've worked on dairy farms. I've worked on regular agricultural farms. I mean, the bottom line is, you want to support the farmers? Sure, I'm all about that. But let's talk about the best way to do this and not skew the marketplace. Because when we subsidize things like corn, wheat, and soybeans, we end up literally dumping stuff onto the market that the market isn't demanding, and we drop the bottom out of prices around the world. So agricultural products that are relatively easy for some developing countries to grow, well, they get pennies on the dollar for them because we have subsidy programs. If we want to support our farmers, let's figure it out. There are good ways to do that from a policy standpoint that don't screw up market dynamics. But hey, anytime we talk about reforms and thinking through stuff, you hate farmers. I watched that in real time. The disaster recovery. I talked about it to begin the show. Senator Haggerty came in and said, hey, we've got to take care of the folks in East Tennessee. I totally agree. We absolutely should support and help them. But the idea is, do we think the right answer is disaster money flowing through FEMA, which is a radically inefficient bureaucracy? We think that's the best way? Well, no.
Wait a minute, just not to get too far away, was it you that showed up after the Alabama tornadoes and you wanted to help clear debris or something and they wouldn't let you because your chainsaw hadn't been inspected?
Yeah, this happened. I went to Hackleburg, Alabama. The F5 tornadoes just destroyed areas of Alabama. And I show up with a chainsaw and said, hey, let's go. And what they were doing to folks is basically saying, well, we need to do a safety training course so that we can make sure you're effective. I'm like, are y'all looking around? This place is destroyed. We need to just start picking up.
Hey, give me a minute. We're going to rescue you, but I got to get through this training course real quick. So just chill out. And I know your leg's broken. We're going to fix it. Just calm down. Give us a couple days. We'll pull you up from under that beam.
Do you have the proper safety gear to help in a way? There's a bunch of good old boys with pickup trucks and chainsaws trying to help people get back to their lives. You know what? I have thoughts about what you can do with your safety training. But we'll talk about those on the other side of the break. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Chad Benson Show on Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. I hear tell of a potential for severe weather here in the next couple of days. Full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Here in Tennessee, one person's dead after a stabbing at the Kroger Delta Distribution Center in Memphis. One person being detained by Memphis police. Bad news in East Tennessee. The Morgan Olson manufacturing plant in Loudoun County notifying state officials it plans to lay off 250 workers starting February 11th. This plant specializes in the production of walk-in vans. It's based in Sturgis, Michigan, employs more than 600 people here in Tennessee. Getting harder to find a job, according to data from the latest unemployment report. Brian Clark tells us.
The number of new jobless claims went down by 1,000 last week to 219,000, according to the Labor Department's weekly report. But continuing claims the total number of Americans collecting benefits increased to 1.91 million, the most since November of 2021. That number suggests that people out of work are having a harder time finding a new position.
Well, Americans opened their wallets in a big way this holiday season. Jim Ryan says consumer spending blew early estimates out of the water.
From November 1st through December 24th, total spending was up 3.8% compared to the same period last year. MasterCard Spending Plus measures traditional and online retail sales across all forms of payment and found that shoppers focused their dollars on in-store promotions and digital events like Black Friday. Online shopping surged 6.7% this year. Brick-and-mortar spending was up 2.9%.
And back here in Tennessee, starting today, you can drop off your real Christmas tree to be recycled. There are drop-off locations in Clarksville and Nashville. In Clarksville, trees can be dropped off at Heritage Park. There are 13 drop-off sites in Nashville, most of them at Metro Parks. You can also drop real trees off at Living Earth locations. The decorations and the lights need to be removed first by you. NDOT says artificial trees can be dropped off at any of their 4 convenience centers. Tree recycling in Nashville ends on Valentine's Day, but in Clarksville, you only have until January 6th. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Welcome back to the Chad Benson Show. I'm Cameron Smith. Thank you for joining me today. Hopefully some of y'all are working off a food coma from Christmas. That's great. For those of y'all that are back into the office, glad to hear that you're working. We were talking about the appropriations status and how those work, and that there's 12 appropriation bills. And for example, the House in 2025 passed 5: Defense, Homeland Security, Interior Environment, Milcon VA, and State Foreign Operations. The Senate passed none. And at this point, and as y'all know, we, right before Christmas, got a government funding deal through March 14th. I don't want to go after the fiscal hawks too hard because they're right on policy. But you can't be right on policy at just the high-stakes moment when the government's about to shut down. You must have a game plan to build majorities that can actually do the work of breaking up the funding of government into these smaller bills and move it forward. And the budget hawks just don't do that. They say no, say something's bad, but they're not in the positions to get the stuff done. They just don't. It's the truth. So you've got your rank and file Republicans that are sort of varying degrees of supportive of government inertia. And then you've got the fiscal hawks that don't want to do massive deficit spending, who just say no at these high stakes moments. And that's really where we are. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. And if you ask somebody from the House Freedom Caucus of, oh, what's your plan? How are you going to build majorities that will agree with you and compromise in a way that reduces this deficit spending? They don't have anything. They don't have a plan. And just saying no and not funding, it sounds cool. It just doesn't work. And here's why. If you cut the $1.83 trillion in deficit spending from this last fiscal year, you would absolutely wreck our economy, because we're like a bodybuilder that's juiced up on steroids who wants to keep the gains and get off the sauce. It does not work that way. The only way to address this situation is gradual pain over time. Reducing the amount of deficit spending, I don't know, pick a number. $500 billion, $300 billion a year. And say, we're going to rein it back incrementally. Over 4 years, 5 years, we'll get rid of this. You could probably do it then. But again, the politics never work, because when the government passes out the goodies. And if you stop passing out the goodies and say, hey, sustained pain over time is my campaign platform, almost nobody likes that. It's just not a very good campaign ad.
Well, in fairness, they love it, but not if it affects them.
Right.
My policies and my departments and what I believe in, that's sacrosanct. But, buddy, you're going to have to go through some issues here.
Right. The ones who are like, abolish the Department of Education. If you come to say, hey, this military spending, defense is, we need to be a little more selective here. No, we can't cut anything there. Stop. Well, I'm not talking about cutting. Let's not build things we don't need. No, we can't do that.
Well, and also you have to remember, this is very important. I think there's still a segment of our audience that doesn't realize this, but anytime they're talking about cuts in Washington, what they mean are smaller percentages of increase.
Right. Like, and let me explain this to you guys in a way that makes a little bit more sense. We would have to cut roughly $8 trillion to get to a point where we spend all the revenues that come in a given year. Okay? Just let that sink in for a second. We would have to cut nearly $2 trillion just to balance the budget in 1 year.
I can take care of the half of that for you right now.
How are you going to do it, Bill?
No more interest payments.
Just tell them to go pound sand.
Here's your money. Click.
So I actually ran that thought experiment before, and it's pretty interesting, because you could tell them to go pound sand. Our credit rating falls completely out, and what ultimately happens is nobody lends you money anymore. And that's the challenge. And frankly, that's what happened with T-bills going up and stuff like that, is people are like, okay, we'll lend you money because the interest rates are going through the roof. But if you don't, and you just make your borrowing costs more expensive, or you can't borrow at all and you crash your economy. So those are not good options. And so the right answer is sustained pain over time. That is not an easy political sell. It's the truth. But that's what we have to get to. And why I'm watching Republicans across the board saying, well, we have to keep the gravy train rolling somewhat. Okay, I hear you. Now, how much are we going to pull it back? Pick a number. Tell me a number. Each of you, if you can hear the sound of my voice, you should call your elected officials and say, how much are we going to reduce the deficit year over year? How much are we going to rein this in? And if they can't tell you, don't vote for them again. If they can't say, I won't vote for any budget that doesn't reduce spending by at least, and then fill in a dollar amount, then they're not serious. And we're just going to keep doing this again and again and again and again.
Yeah, it's like if they can't give you a number, they haven't thought about it.
Right.
If they haven't thought about it, they're not doing their jobs.
Right. This is the fundamental job of those folks, is to run the federal government. That's basically why Congress is there. And they can't even figure out funding, and they certainly can't figure out how to spend within their means. And if we continue to clap for this and say, well, but we like them kind of because some of them are Republicans, man, how embarrassing is it going to be over the next 2 years if we keep these $1 trillion plus deficits when Republicans have total control? I mean, come on, folks.
Well, we still got to filibuster in the Senate, though. We can't really get around that.
We have to. It's probably someone else's fault. Wait, but you have the House and the Senate and the White House. Well, Trump wanted to do it. He did. I'm serious. He did. Well, what if he doesn't? And that, to me, is the bigger issue. That's the thing. When you ask me, am I excited about January 20th? My bigger concern is, well, what if we just keep doing the same thing-ish? And that, to me, is scary. That's what keeps me up at night, is at some point this just falls apart. And then it's a real problem. But the idea that we're going to just sort of rely on inertia until then seems like it's the plan.
Not to beat up Trump too much, because I think he had to deal with COVID.
He did.
And there was no playbook on how to do that. So he made a ton of mistakes. That's just undeniable. But I do think they were him attempting to mitigate a horrible problem. But that's the sort of thing that we should have our fiscal house in order to be able to handle when it comes up. We should have been able to go into deficit spending to handle the economy without going, well, we've got all this. Oh, it doesn't matter. We'll just spend and spend. No, we should have had the buffer zone in our budget to be able to deal with that effectively.
Yeah.
And we don't, because they just want to spend.
Right. We didn't. And I mean, we're looking at, it was a little over $3 trillion in 2020 deficit, 2.8 trillion 2021, 1.4-ish trillion 2022, 1.7 in 2023, 1.8. So we cut, and then we started going right back up. And anytime we're talking trillion or more, that's nuts. It is absolutely insane. And when you're looking at $1 trillion, we're going to near $1 trillion in just net interest. This next fiscal year, we will almost certainly be at $1 trillion or more in net interest payments. That means you're borrowing money to pay interest on the money you borrowed, to the tune of over $1 trillion. And so these folks need to be fired. And I mean that sincerely. They need to be fired if they don't have a game plan for knocking this bad boy back down to, I don't know, a manageable $100 to $300 billion annual deficit.
But we get back into the same corner when it comes to the politicians, because, my guy's great. My guy he does everything I love. Now, your guy, on the other hand, he sucks and he's got to go.
Yeah.
That's basically people's attitude.
That's like folks in Tennessee being like, well, Nancy Pelosi's the problem. Well, yeah, great, but you don't get to vote for Nancy.
Yeah, and she had help.
How's Blackburn doing? How's Haggerty doing? How about Andy Ogles or Burchett? Like, tell me about them and what the game plan is and how we're going to rein all this in. Or are we just like Democrat bad? Because that's the problem, is we look over there and the best defense for a Republican is a Democrat. To say, well, at least I'm not those guys. And then that's how we get to where we are right now. We've got a little time, but I've got Steve from Murfreesboro on the CR. What you thinking, Steve?
Hey, buddy. I'm just curious as to why there's not really an outrage. Every time there's a continuing resolution or even an omnibus bill, it means that the entire Congress failed to pass a constitutional budget. And that ought to be our cry, is we got to get a budget. Give us a budget. Show us that you're doing your job, because this other stuff of, hey, we're just going to kick the can down the road for the next 18 weeks. And in 18 weeks, we're going to get right back in the same crisis. Oh, no, the government's going to shut down. We got to do something that we don't like to do, but we got to do it because the government's going to shut down. Well, if you had a freaking budget that a lot of thought went into, that was vetted, and that then people really had to put their name on the line, then you had something that you could get behind and, either be proud of or be ashamed of.
Sure.
These little continuing resolutions, these little omnibus bills, they always push it out in such a panic. We don't want to do this, but we have to, or the government's going to shut down.
But that's by design. They know it's coming, but it's by design that they do this. It is part of the financial, pageantry. It's not real. They knew it was coming. They didn't do their jobs, and now they're saying their hand is forced. That is a lie.
But to your point, we got to stop celebrating that, they stopped the government from shutting down. Instead, we have to say, this is a blatant failure that you didn't pass a legitimate budget. That's what we got to do. We got to change our mindset.
So
let them know that it's no longer okay to just stop the government from shutting down. No, you need to pass an actual budget, something that, you put some thought into, something that, again, you can either be proud of or be ashamed of.
So, Steve, who's your representative in the House of Representatives?
To be honest with my friend, I'm ashamed to say I think it's Desjardins. I don't think I know for
let's
sure.
Let's say Desjardins. And this is what I'm getting at. And I'm not picking at you. But, Desjardins has been elected term after term after term. We've done the same thing term after term after term. So at what point is it just our fault? You say you want outrage. I'm saying, well, okay, I hear that, but why don't we just fire them?
Well, the embarrassing fact is, I've heard this. I haven't verified this. You're probably the perfect guy that can look this up in 20 seconds. But I've been told that we actually haven't had a budget passed since 2008 or 2010, an actual constitutional budget. So if that's the case, if we haven't had our last actual budget was 2010, that means for the last 12 years, Congress has failed. And again, if we can get folks that have a microphone out there getting everyone else riled up to say, hey, they stopped the government from shutting down, we should not celebrate that. We should be flooding their phones with, why did you fail to pass an actual budget? Where's the budget? Who's the person that's going to run and say, we're not going to pass another continuing resolution, we're not going to pass another omnibus bill until we pass a budget?
Yeah,
that's what's required in the Constitution. And I think because a lot of people just aren't aware of how civics is supposed to work, they're okay with the emergency, and that's exactly what it is. Everything is a screaming 5-alarm, my hair's on fire emergency when, no, the government's going to shut down if we don't have this passed by midnight tomorrow night, even though, like you said, they've seen it coming 3 months down the road. Well, what about a full 12-month budget? Give it to us.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, Steve. Thanks for the call. We'll talk about it. I pulled it up. I'll tell you when the last budget resolution was adopted. But first, we got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to the Chad Benson Show on Superdog 99.7.
Kroger is out with a statement after the death of one of its workers in Memphis, a part of workplace violence. We'll tell you about it at 2 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Chad Benson Show. This is Cameron Smith filling in. Time flies when you're having fun and talking about federal spending. Well, at least when you're having fun. So I was looking at it. I see a budget resolution passed in fiscal 2022. It was passed in the Senate 50-49 and in the House 220-212. Here's the problem. This isn't necessarily the Constitution's requirement, but there's the Congressional Budget Act of 1974, which establishes this process. And it all gets kicked off when, in February, the president releases his budget. So Trump's going to take office, and then if he follows the law correctly, in February, he will release his budget of tax and spending priorities in February. And this gets everything rolling. The budget that you guys are talking about, and you heard on the last phone call, is what's called a concurrent resolution. It is not signed by the president. So the budget resolution is adopted by the House and Senate, but it never goes to the president because it's them saying, here's our budget, which we're going to adhere to as we go through the appropriations process. So why does that matter? Why would anybody do that? Well, this is saying we've looked at the president's budget request and we've thought about it, and we think this is the right way to set up our federal budget. So the specifics of the appropriation bills need to dovetail with this spending that we've agreed to. And then it allows members of Congress to raise a budget point of order when appropriations bills don't do that. Well, appropriators like to spend. They like to spend whatever they want. They don't really want members raising budget points of order, especially not in the Senate, where that's subject to a 60-vote threshold. So we've done deeming resolutions and a bunch of other nerdy policy wonk stuff. But the bottom line is we don't really want to do all of these things, and we don't really want to follow this process. And by we, I mean Congress. So that then suggests we should have a budgetary process reform discussion. I mean, that was more than 50 years ago that we came up with the current process we just ignore. And so that's a great way to say, hey, Congress, if you don't like it and you're not going to do it, come up with a better option. Again, this is where we seem to have more people in Congress who want to be B-list celebrities than actually do the difficult work of developing policy that makes sense. And I hate it that we've come to that, but I don't have another explanation. It's let me tell you how I feel on X as opposed to, hey, I got an idea on how we solve this glaring problem that we don't seem to be able to keep our fiscal house in order. And that's unfortunately what we deal with. And yeah, it's their fault, but we're the ones that put up with it. We're the ones that keep sending them back over and over again. So there's no penalty for bad behavior because we just blame the bad behavior on the folks that we don't get to vote for. It sounds insane to me, truly insane. But it's what we do, and we need to be honest about it. So if you're a conservative out there saying, well, I'm conservative, I want to eliminate the debt, good luck. You keep sending back the same folks that accrued it. Y'all come on back on the other side of the break. We'll finish the conversation. I'm Cameron Smith. This is Super Talk 99.7.
Two o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Checking traffic here. I see we do have a crash at Murfreesboro Pike near Edge Lake Drive. That is an injury crash. Police working it. Full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Violence in the workplace, a stabbing at a Kroger distribution center in Memphis this morning. One person died, another person detained by police. Kroger issued a statement saying it has been in contact with the associate's family and offers condolences to all impacted by this tragic loss. It's providing counseling services for the associates there at the distribution center as well. Bad news in East Tennessee. 250 people going to be getting laid off from a manufacturing plant in Loudoun County. Morgan Olson LLC notified state officials earlier this month it's going to start the layoffs on February 11th at its plant where it makes walk-in vans. Right now in Nashville, several people's cars were flooded after a series of water main breaks that Metro Water Services is blaming on the weather. This man in telling Channel 4.
I've never seen anything like this. I mean, it was on our Facebook page this morning, but yeah, I mean, a lot of cars are definitely affected.
Cars underwater up to the top of the tires inside the parking garage of the Ludlow condominium complex in North Nashville this morning. A pet food recall over bird flu and a death. Here's Chuck Severson.
An Oregon house cat died after eating pet food that tested positive for bird flu, says the state veterinarian. It's led to a voluntary recall of the 2-pound package of feline turkey recipe raw frozen pet food. It's sold nationwide and in Canada's British Columbia, made by Northwest Naturals, based in Portland, Oregon. The state veterinarian says the cat was strictly an indoor cat and it was not exposed to the virus in its environment. Plus, genome sequence testing confirmed the virus was in the pet food.
Back here in Nashville, Metro Police say they arrested a man on Christmas Eve who had lit a fire along I-40 eastbound to go southbound at 65 and was throwing fiery objects at traffic. He caused $1,000 damage to a 2023 Mercedes-Benz wagon. Another driver says a piece of wood was thrown, cracking his windshield. Police say they arrested Benjamin Jackson, charged him with vandalism. Want great deals? Shop today, especially for holiday decorations, nearly all of them made overseas, possibly subjecting them to tariffs proposed by President-elect Trump. ABC News consumer correspondent Becky Worley with where to shop.
Kohl's has holiday decor on sale for 50% off. Target also offering 50% off of holiday decor. And I can't tell you exactly what the savings will be, but one of the best places for these kind of deals, your local pharmacy chain. They historically slash prices on everything.
Now, she says parents of young children would do well to shop for birthday party toys today. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
If you like AC/DC, you're going to like Chad Benson. Just saying. I'm Cameron Smith filling in right now for the Chad Benson on the Chad Benson Show. We've been talking about budgetary process, how all this stuff works, just trying to educate you guys on the 12 appropriations bills, the Congressional Budget Act of 1974, all this excitement, and all of it is to say these guys in Congress aren't fiscally responsible at all. That's our big takeaway for the day. So I'll button that up just to say, so if you're an elected official, go look at votesmart.org and you can enter your zip code and they'll tell you who represents you. If they can't tell you how much they're going to try to cut year over year and what they're going to cut, they haven't thought about it. They're not serious. And we're just going to keep doing the same. And it's not the other guy's fault. And what I mean by that is all of us in Tennessee, those of us who are represented by Republicans, a lot of those Republican officials tell us, well, the real problem here is the Democrats. Well, we should just know that's not true. Because
they're part of it.
They're part of it.
They're not all of it.
Right. If that were true, then we would have fiscal conservatism when Republicans are in power and fiscal blowouts when Democrats are in power. And really what we see is just fiscal blowouts regardless of who's in power. So that means that some of the folks that we're voting for aren't doing the things that they say they're going to do. I know that shocks you to learn that, but that's where we are, and it's a problem. I want to pivot a little bit now to a couple other things that are out there, and I've got some bah humbugs to end 2024, and then some things I'm excited about in 2025. So I want you guys to chime in. SuperTalk text line 615-737-9986. I'm going to tell you my ultimate bah humbug right now. It's me being forced to do checkout on my own, feeling like I'm a convict making license plates, and then having somebody hassle me on the way out like I stole something. This has got to stop. And I understand this is the proliferation of technology, but I was at Walmart and I was kind of going through this, right? Now they have these lines, so you wait in line for somebody to point you to a kiosk where you are closely monitored in your checkout process. And so you're scanning everything, trying to figure everything out, making sure it goes in the right place. And then on the way out, if you're successful in doing that, they ask you to show them your receipt so then they can verify and check that you didn't steal everything. Well, I get it. You want to be more efficient, and I always support that. But good grief, it has made the shopping experience horrific. I like to be able to talk to somebody. I like to be able to say, hey, how's your day going? What's going on? Just basic human interaction. But what I'm finding increasingly is we know that we can't trust you not to steal, but we don't want to pay someone to be there to actually check you out. So we'll do it this way. And that's my bah humbug. I just hate that. I absolutely hate it. Kroger's done something like that. A number of companies have. And there needs to be a mindset change of we got to meet in the middle, right? We've got to have some way of making this more personable and engaging and positive, because right now it is just a train wreck. And I understand why people want to buy everything online, because then I buy it and you ship it to me and I don't have to do anything. I don't have to prove to you that I didn't steal it. And I know, for example, I'm a Costco addict. I'm constantly there shopping. That one drives me nuts because little customer service things like, just let me stick my empty box on the scale, like so that I can load that into the box and put the box in my cart. No, I have to scan everything, put it on the scale individually, and then load my box. That kind of stuff drives me nuts. And I hear you. 6436 says you don't have to use the self-checkout and you don't have to stop and show your receipts. I know, but I don't really want to create like a flashpoint for somebody that's getting paid to check the receipts. It wasn't their policy. It wasn't their decision to implement it. And so I don't want to go start a fight with them. They're just trying to do a job that somebody in corporate told them they have to do. And so, I mean, it stinks, but bleh, I don't want to do that. I hate that experience. It is literally dehumanizing. And I can't stand it. I don't know how we, walk that one back, but it drives me nuts. Jason in Hendersonville has some thoughts on the matter. Jason, what you got?
You are not required to stop at any of those checkouts at the door for them to check your receipt, okay? Now, if you're at Sam's or Costco where you pay a membership and there are certain rules to that membership requiring them to be able to check your receipt, sure. But if you just go to Walmart and do self-checkout, feel free to make your way to the parking lot. If they want to stop you and check you for theft, then they can go through that full process with the proper authorities.
Right.
But other than that, you make your way on out the door.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Thanks, Jason. I appreciate the call. I mean, if it's a public place where everybody's welcome to come in and shop and leave, then I guess that's probably true. Again, I just have a problem with the person at the door who's doing a job that somebody told him to do, and I don't want to start a fight. More importantly, and they know this, I don't want to deal with them thinking, like stopping me, going through a process, calling in the police, just to prove that I didn't take anything. But what I'm saying is, why do we have to do this stuff in the first place at all? Why can't we figure some of this stuff out? There's got to be an easier way here, either much more evolved technology or, just something. I don't care. If it's you go shop and we're tracking what you pull out and we've got an AI that can see everything that you pick up and put in your cart, and then we get a checkout bill and then you just swipe your card and you're done, count me in. If you're not going to make it more human, make it far more efficient. But right now we have this sort of stupid balance of not very human and not very efficient. So it's just the worst of both worlds. So that one is very much a bah humbug. 8403 says, and even worse at Walmart, they have items locked up with no button to call someone, and no one ever working in that area has a key. You can't take the item with you to checkout, and there are all kinds of items the same package size that cost 2 or 3 times more that are not locked up. Right. It just doesn't make any sense. And again, I love Walmart's low prices. I want to help them keep low prices. I do not want to encourage theft, but it's just awful. And I hate it for the people that work there because they're getting hassled because they're asking folks for receipts, and it's, oh, well, don't treat me like a criminal. I checked out. I did my thing. Oh, well, we see a thing that you did. Oh, hey, I forgot that. I missed that. Okay, cool. If I miss it, I go back and I pay for it. But I just, it just drives me nuts. It's so nuts. 6436 says, people hate using self-checkouts, but the thing is, if people stop using them, the stores won't continue to put them in. Yeah. Do not complain about their system if you are willing to abide by their system. That's a fair point. I guess I just don't need to shop at Walmart anymore. Okay. When my wife tells me to run errands, it's not like that's at the top of my list to go there. I would like to pay a little bit more. And I just feel like if you're looking at me, I scream dad. That's really what I scream. And so the likelihood that I'm your target profile of somebody that's stealing is pretty low. So, okay. I guess that's a fair point. If you don't like it, don't shop there. Okay. But can you help me out a little bit? There's got to be like a middle ground here, right? Where I'm still going to do it and they don't. I accidentally did this. Somebody raised this issue. We run all our stuff through my wife's cell phone number for like receipts and stuff like this. I was at Walmart and it asked me for the phone number for the receipt. I put in her phone number. And I see the lady over there checking all the receipts. And I'm like, well, this isn't going to be great. And so I had to go get the guy who was standing there. And he said, oh, yeah, I'll just give you a receipt. But when you enter this in, it sends the receipt to the phone that you enter. And I'm like, well, I don't have that phone. It's my wife's phone number. And so he printed it, and it was fine. But the lady did ask me, said, can I see your receipt? Because I have 5 boys in my house. Whenever we shop anywhere, it's all of it. We shop and we buy all of it because we consume everything. Samantha in Nashville has some thoughts. What you got, Samantha?
Hey, yeah, so the whole thing with Walmart checking your receipts, I never let them see my receipt because, honestly, what reason do you have the right to check what I paid for? If I paid for it, it's mine. Therefore, it's no longer your property. I purchased it. So I normally just walk past them. I don't say a word to them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that we can do that, but I mean, doesn't that seem a little bit like, I mean, if we want to be polite and cordial, that seems kind of rough, right?
It is, but also when they stand there and watch you pay for it and then want to see your receipt, I think that's a little ridiculous. You watched me pay for my items.
Agreed.
So now why do you want to check my receipt?
Yeah, I think you're right, Samantha. I appreciate the call. And this is my whole point is they had and have, and I don't know the latest in security, and they're not real public about it because they don't want everybody to kind of learn. But I know there was a point where it looked like they were using AI or something akin to it to track the items as you scan them and put them into your cart. And whenever something gets flagged, like it doesn't beep or you put it in the wrong way, then somebody comes over and checks on it. So Samantha's point, if you're doing that, why do you need to see my receipt on the way out? If you've got the checks there, then what are we really doing other than sending the message, we don't trust any of our customers? And I think that's a terrible way to do business. I don't like it. It's a big problem. And so that's definitely a bah humbug. And, it's right up there with like HOAs. You should message me on the SuperTalk text line, 615-737-9986, if you actually like your HOA. And you think it's great. This is the same type thing of like, it's just ticky-tacky stuff. Nick says, I just want an employee discount for doing their job. Either that or give me a cashier. Amen, brother. If you're going to make me work for you to buy stuff from you, oddly, the only people that do that are government defense contractors, where we pay them to build a thing and buy it from them. That's how the federal government does that. But this is, we give you our free labor to check out for the things that we want to buy. And I can't do it anymore. And so the main answer may be that I just don't get to shop at certain places with those kind of like, we don't like our customers practices. Because I love the places I go. I went to a coffee shop in Nolensville this morning, Mama's Java. It's amazing. They're always nice. And they talk to me and say, hey, how's your morning? And it is by contrast, a humanizing experience. So when they get absolutely swamped on a Friday morning where everybody hits the coffee shop at once, you know what I know about a lot of those customers? They're a little more tolerant. Why? Because they've been treated kindly by the staff there at other times that they're not swamped. So I'll wait. So I do think it still matters. And 6436 says, you don't have to use them. Well, yeah, but in fairness, they've taken them out in a lot of places. So it's either you use those or maybe we have somebody there, maybe we don't. But mostly you just use those, particularly if it's late or it's early. And so I'm all about, 9412 says, everyone wants lower prices, wait times, efficiency, yet take offense with spot checks. Okay, sure. I get that. But let's be even more efficient. Let's make it super easy. I'll make this super easy. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Deadly Tennessee workplace stabbing, hundreds of layoffs announced in Tennessee at a time when the weekly jobless numbers show it's taking longer to land another job. We'll tell you about it at 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Chad Benson Show. I'm Cameron Smith. You guys have me digging deep on this. I was pulling up the shopkeeper's law and some different things, and I was reading Tennessee code and talking about detaining somebody. There actually is a law that is on the books that a merchant or merchant's employee or agent or a peace officer who quote, has probable cause to believe that a person has committed or is attempting to commit the offense of theft can detain that person. So you basically, you got to have probable cause to do that. It's interesting. I'm glad that you guys it prompted me to do that. Marcia in Manchester has some thoughts. Marcia, what you got?
Well, it doesn't bother me to do self-checkout. In fact, I kind of like it because I'm so nitpicky. I like to make sure everything is done the way I like to do it. I like to make sure everything's run right and in the bags the right way. So I like all that. And it doesn't bother me for them to check my, packages. At certain stores like Walmart, they only check, whatever you've got outside of a bag. But like at Costco and everything, they say they're going to check everything, but they don't. They don't even really take their time. So none of it bothers me.
Okay. Well, that's fair.
That's just my input. It doesn't bother me at all.
All right. Thanks, Marcia. I appreciate that. So Marcia's saying, hey, no big deal here. I mean, that's just the price of doing business in 2024, 2025. That's just kind of where we are. Jeremiah on the Superdog text line said, that's white privilege if you think someone can ask for a receipt and you can tell them no without cops being called. Because trust me, if you're black, they will call the police. My whole point is that my refusal to say I'm not going to give you my receipt is not evidence that I've stolen something. You watched me go through the checkout. What was funny at Walmart the other day when I was checking out, my receipt was in my hand, that it was in plain sight. And again, as Marcia pointed out, folks aren't going through item by item and saying, well, I've now carefully checked this. It's just sort of a general loss prevention thing. So I don't know. I mean, I just don't like the idea of feeling accused like I stole something when I clearly didn't. And I've gone through the process, and there's any number of mechanisms to check that. I'm not trying to argue that shopkeepers and merchants have to just let everybody walk out the door with whatever. But there's a process here, right? And there's something we can do. I say either make it much more efficient and just not personal, or let's make it personal again. Let's, have the kindness. Let's have the positivity. I just like that. It matters. So, those are the things that are kind of meh, bah humbug. What am I excited about in 2025? I'm excited that there may be a chance to rein in the federal government. It's really positive. I think that's a big deal, and we've talked about it a little bit earlier in the show. There's a lot of reasons why that won't happen, and a lot of reasons to believe it's just a pipe dream. But I think there's probably the best opportunity we've had in a while with Republicans being in charge and at least expressing an interest. So we'll see. We'll see. I'll tell you some other things that I'm really high on and positive about going into 2025 on the other side of the break. We've got a half hour to go. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Chad Benson Show on Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Tell you about the potential for some severe weather here in Middle Tennessee. Right now, we're monitoring reports out of Memphis about a workplace stabbing. One person died, another person detained by police. This happening at the Kroger Delta Distribution Center. Kroger issuing a statement saying it is saddened and is in contact with the deceased employee's family, offering condolences to all impacted, offering counseling services for everyone at its distribution center. Bad news in Loudoun County in East Tennessee. 250 people to be laid off by Morgan Olson, LLC, which makes walk-in vans. The layoffs to start on February 11th. Officials working to make sure affected employees have access to resources and assistance. The company is based in Sturgis, Michigan, employs more than 600 people at its plant there in Loudoun County. Meanwhile, Brian Clark says the weekly jobless numbers paint a contrasting picture.
The number of new jobless claims went down by 1,000 last week to 219,000, according to the Labor Department's weekly report. But continuing claims, the total number of Americans collecting benefits increased to 1.91 million, the most since November of 2021. That number suggests that people out of work are having a harder time finding a new position.
Looking for ways to spend those gift cards? Shop today, says ABC News consumer correspondent Becky Worley on those post-Christmas sales.
Old Navy is going to offer 50 to 70% off of their entire inventory. Gap offering an extra 50% off of markdowns. Athleta has 30% off your whole purchase. Madewell up to 60% off. Target up to 50% off shoes and clothing for kids and adults, plus 50% or more off of those holiday PJ sets and holiday decor.
Time to recycle those Christmas trees. Nashville Department of Transportation offering 13 drop-off sites, mostly city parks, through Valentine's Day. But first, you have to remove all the decorations and lights yourself. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Welcome back to the Chad Benson Show. I'm Cameron Smith, full of holiday spirit and talking about the positive things I'm looking forward to in 2025. My buddy Mike reached out and said he can't stand it either, but the checkout process, I mean. But talent isn't what it used to be. Customer service isn't there, so it's just part of the game. He and Alex have been unpacking their kitchen. If they ever write a book about the story of their kitchen renovation, it will be a bestseller. It is truly one of the more fascinating things I've ever heard of, and you too should find interesting friends who do things that spiral completely out of control and then tell you about it, because, wow, it was... I'm not going to tell their story, but when they do, you should buy the book. So, things I'm excited about in 2025. Reining in the government, that sounds good. Unlikely to happen, but I'm optimistic. Big thing that I care about is reforming the Department of Children's Services, DCS, and promoting fostering. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we don't use part of our budget at the state level to actually ask people to be foster parents and adopt, that kind of stuff. There is a public policy interest in doing that, and I don't know about you guys, but I sure haven't seen the ad campaign. I haven't seen the request of, hey, you've got an extra guest room in your house. Why don't you put a kid there? As far as DCS goes, we need more sunshine on DCS. I understand the privacy because there's kids and families in not ideal situations, and we need to maintain that confidence and that privacy. But the agency doesn't deserve it.
Speaking of which, last General Assembly session, you helped get a bill through that basically demanded that parents be allowed to see their children immediately if they've been arrested.
Yep.
So we had also had another discussion about a bill that would prevent them from being able to give up.
Waive their rights.
Yeah. So is that going to happen this General Assembly?
Yeah, I got a whole list I got to talk with them, but I think it's a fair point.
Yeah, but that was my half of our idea.
Yeah.
And you kind of abandoned me at the General Assembly point. He's like, but I got to put it in this. That's not ours.
I got to do all the lift for Bell.
Yes.
Good grief. But yeah, what Bell's talking about is that minors who get picked up by law enforcement, they actually can waive their rights, which is really concerning because most kids don't understand that we teach them to work with law enforcement.
Yeah, trust and engage.
Right. They're here to protect you. And look, I don't think it's common for law enforcement to try to extract confessions and things like that from minors. However, I don't think that we want minors to be able to waive their rights in those contexts.
Yeah, they should have to be able to consult or be allowed to consult with their parents or a legal representative before they can just say, oh, okay, I give up my right to be silent. Because if it's a 14 or a 15, 16-year-old kid that they've picked up, there's going to be a lot of an automatic intimidation factor. Even if that cop is the nicest guy in the world, they're going to be like, I'm supposed to cooperate with him.
Well, and it's actually in our interest and better for us that if a minor can't waive their rights, they're more likely to talk anyway, right? We know they're more likely to talk. They're kids. So if it's, hey, you can't waive your rights, so anything you say to help us stop a crime from happening or, intervene in this situation, it can't be used against you. So go ahead and talk. We then can't use it against you. And I think because we want those other things done, it matters. 2637 said, wait, Cameron, you shaved. And this is true. My face now feels like sandpaper, but I got the long beard off.
You look like Kevin from Home Alone.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Bell.
Nice and smooth face.
Yes. I used aftershave and I did the reaction because it did, in fact, burn. I'll grow it back out. My facial hair grows really fast, but I really just looked like I needed to be in Guantanamo. And so I decided, hey, we should clean this up for the new year. And I'd like to be able to feel my face again. So that's nice. So letting you know. Back to things I'm excited about. Reforming DCS, I want sunshine. Like, yes, Bell's right about the minors waiving their rights. That's a good policy thing to have a discussion about in advance. But also, we need more sunlight and accountability in some of these state agencies in Tennessee. I'm not anti-DCS. I'm very pro-DCS. They have an important mission. It's critical. We need to look at it and say, hey, is this structured right? Is this built in a way that serves families the best and gives kids the most opportunities and protects them well? Because if the answer is no, then we got some work to do. And we need to sort of think through some of those things. I don't have preconceived notions about what reforms we need to do. The only one that I feel very strongly is that for the agency, not the kids, not the families, I want to see more accountability. What are you doing to place these kids, to get them in homes, to reunite families, to do this stuff? Show me the numbers. Let's get going. And if we're not doing it right or something's wrong or we have a lot of kids in places they don't need to be, like staying in state office buildings, then let's get it right. If we're sending kids out of state because we don't have enough facilities for them, why? What are we not doing well? I want our legislative class to ask more questions, and I want the agencies to have better answers. And I think Governor Lee understands this stuff. I feel very positive about the governor's level of engagement here and what we want to see happen. It just won't happen overnight. But there does need to be more sunshine. We absolutely need to be talking about specifics. And there's just not much in the news about DCS, good or bad. There's not much information. It's just rough. And so on the positive and negative fronts, we need to have a more robust discussion because this is life. This is reality. There are some families that have been torn apart and things are awful. And we want to help build them back together. And then there are people who frankly, are in a bad situation. Their parental rights have been terminated. There's kids who need a place to stay. And I think it's freaking important. So that's something I'm excited about and wanting to do. Also, doing cool things together without government. Yeah, you heard it right. We need to come up with problems we can solve without saying, dear politicians, will you save me? Because they're really bad at saving us. And a lot of them are really bad at solving problems. So our communities need to figure out how to solve some of these things on our own. And I want to identify some of those things and see if we can go with them. A couple other things. Eating right and continuing fitness stuff. This is a new thing over the last couple of years, but it's mattered. And I set a better example for my sons when I take care of myself and do the difficult things like not eating trash and going and doing things like...
It was above the rim. It was one bite and it was above the rim.
But that's the problem, is it's easy to get in bad habits. So continuing to do better and set a positive example, that's there. And then also just encouraging parents. We're all in this together in different ways as we're raising young people. It's weird. And in my case, it smells funny. But we need to figure out a game plan to encourage one another and get in the right direction. We have the latest, greatest. Bell is waving his hands and wants the good Mr. Murphy, who I don't know if you guys know that, but he's on from 3 to 7 now. He's big time. The drive reached its final destination, and so now it's the Matt Murphy show right after the Chad Benson show, and I'm thrilled. And
he's doing this to me on purpose just to make me suffer.
I was told to come in here.
You were.
I was told to make an early appearance.
Well,
and so I did.
This is called a rescue, people.
Is this not?
Not even close.
I mean, it looks like it. I mean, which way do you want me to go? This way?
To your left.
So, guys, we have cameras in here. So, for those of y'all that watch the video feed, and the problem is one of the cameras.
Hi,
man. It's a cross-eyed camera.
That's a big beaver.
Thank you. It is for those of you who can see my shirt.
I guess for those listening on radio, they're very confused.
Yes, my shirt actually has a.
And you're having the time of your life confusing them.
Yes,
no, that's a big beaver, isn't it?
Yes, much like the locks for Trump that Matt's working with
in the holiday spirit. Yeah, how do you like them?
They are getting super long.
It's really long.
It's now crawling down your back, man.
Yeah, it's beyond mullet. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous.
So you're now
hello, Cameron.
You're the 4-hour man. Tell me about it.
I don't know. I've not been the 4-hour man for a while. So
You are.
So I am now. We'll have a good time. We're going to have a lot of fun. We'll kind of reintroduce ourselves to those who were not able to listen during the midday hours, and we'll do that starting today at 4:05. Hey, remember the segment that went over like a fart in a car called Getting to Know You? Remember that segment?
Getting to know
It was so awful, we're going to bring it back for the afternoon.
I like that level of dedication.
Yeah, it was so bad.
You are so wrong. That was a great segment.
Yeah. Well, and in this case, it's allowing the audience to get a little to know me, and I'll get to know you. And it'll be fun.
Guys, this is going to be a lot of fun because, one, Matt's fantastic, and I say this as a friend, but also as somebody that likes listening to radio. He makes it weird in the best ways.
Cameron. It's true. You're right.
And I, like I said, the addition of Chad to the lineup, and I said this, Matt, that Chad's here to melt some snowflakes.
He's my kind of weirdo.
Yeah, it's
my kind of
good.
weirdo.
We got some
I like that.
great weird now.
We do.
It is very
some jamming weird.
I mean, when I come in here, no one knows what's going on. We have, like I said, all the best words.
We do have all the best words, and I'm excited about it. I'm a little distracted because there's correspondence from the Sumner County Jail that I was reading, and it was not addressed to me, and I looked at it anyway because it was here.
So for those of you who
Dan, Chris, and Dave, whoever Dave is, who's Dave?
Dave Myers.
I don't know.
Dave's not here, man.
Dave's not here.
So
anyway,
there are things that show up on this desk that these microphones are attached to, and no one knows where it comes from. And
unless it's throat coat.
Because apparently, I'll tell you part of it. Apparently, and I love him like he's the brother I never met. But apparently, someone told Dan Mandis that anything that comes into this room, he's not allowed to take it back out. So he never takes his stuff out with him. Like if y'all give Dan Mandis stuff, if y'all send him stuff, it lands in this room and it stays here forever.
And Dan was always the guy that on a Monday
I guarantee
morning,
that's Dan Mandis.
Yeah, Dan would come in on a Monday morning and go, "Why is this place so messy? What's going on?"
Actually, for me,
and he'd get angry that it was messy, and now he messes it up.
Matt just realized he's leaving his stuff in here too.
No. This was from Joan Jones, and she was not able to give it to me before the holidays. So it's a nice little Christmas ornament.
Yes, it is.
How was your holiday?
It was great, man. Like we had Christmas morning with the dudes. I put on my buddy the elf costume.
Did you know?
And it was quiet and lovely, and then was the sound of the boys coming down the steps like a hurricane.
Get the goods.
We tried briefly to do rounds of present opening, like you open it and then
everybody watches. I hate that.
And they said, "Dad, no.
Let's just tear into this
Let's
stuff,
just
man.
do it." And Justine was like, "Are you sure?" And then by that time, it was just papers flying everywhere. The dogs are flying everywhere. Everything's flying.
Right. There's different methods, right? There's the 1-1-1-1-1-1-1 method. Then the least favorite method for all listening right now, and you know it's true, is we're going to give out all of the presents, and then one by one, you open all of your presents.
Yes.
Like I've been around. That's an awful method.
That should never be allowed.
Because I'm sitting here forever waiting to open my presents. At least do the 1-1-1. I'm a big fan of just lay into it.
Just go.
Just lay into it.
Just go. Well, we got to go. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more with Matt before his 4 hours of wonderful deliciousness.
A lot of fun.
We'll come up with better adjectives, too.
Wonderful deliciousness.
I'm Cameron.
Actually, I've been trying to find a name for the show. That's pretty good.
Wonderful
deliciousness with Matt Murphy.
I've got one. Now, the Matt Murphy Show has moved. It is now 3 to 7, but it is still Friday Eve, and we need to celebrate as such.
Oh, my goodness.
I got that into my new contract that doesn't get played in the afternoons.
Well, I just broke your contract.
All right. We're going to just take a break. This is Super Talk 99.7. Welcome back as we wind down the Chad Benson Show, heading into the Matt Murphy Show. And I'm telling you guys, you better call your friends to tune in because
it's been a week, man. I'm ready to go.
Over the break,
Fired up.
He has what I call wolf face, which is when he's just fired up and about some things, and he's got it, baby.
Well, the whole continuing resolution and budget reconciliations and all of these types of things, the idea that we needed someone more conservative than Mike Johnson to be the Speaker of the House without any plans on who that's going to be. Your whole Walmart take was awful. I want some of that. I want a piece of that. I got a lot to say.
He's fired up.
I've only got 4 hours, too. And I also stink like a bonfire. I just realized this. You ever go through your day? I shouldn't waste this on the Chad Benson Show. I should wait for the Matt Murphy Show, but I'm going to do it anyway. You ever go through the day and you smell something and you smell something, and then at some point you realize it's you?
Yep.
So I put this on earlier, and this is my new, it's cloth, but it's wax. I like it. I got it from Cracker Barrel for $40. I'm so excited.
That's a deal.
I thought so too. It's nice. I think it might be made in China, but whatever. So I was over at my brother's for a few days, hanging out with my brother and his kids, I guess my niece and nephew, and we had a big bonfire, and I didn't remember that I had a bonfire while I was wearing this, and so I'm going through the day like, why do I smell something burning? I'm smelling something burning constantly. It's me.
Yeah.
So
actually,
I'm on fire.
Same thing all the time because with my crew, we set stuff on fire literally like it's our job.
Mm-hmm.
And so constantly I'm throwing on a hoodie and it smells like smoke.
You're trying to keep your kids from racking up an arson charge usually.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm like, these are appropriate places to burn things. These are inappropriate. So
Right.
it's pretty basic. That's just kind of
a firewall can't stop me. You think this will?
You ever anyone that has been a bonfire aficionado can identify with this, where you want a nice robust bonfire and you prepare for that and you light it, and while the tinder is going, the smaller branches and the cardboard or whatever you got in there to ignite the thing, there's a moment, there's about a 10-minute zone where you're like, okay, this is going to end badly because the embers are going up and you're like, I don't know how wet it is out in those woods, and there's going to, and at one point my niece said to my brother Brian and I, hey, what happens if the woods catch on fire? I'm like, well, that's gonna end badly. There's gonna be a lot of fire trucks, and
that's a problem for somebody else.
That's right.
If that happens, it's gonna be bigger than this bonfire.
I mean, it is going to be dangerous.
Yeah. So my fire pit is right outside my bedroom window. So sometimes we get a little creative and burn pallets and Amazon box, whatever, right? Yeah. And those flames get real hot and they go towards the bedroom window. And if I have that window open to get a little cross breeze, I fill my bedroom with smoke.
Smoke it out.
And Justine does not like that. It's bad. It's really bad.
It's the holidays, baby.
We do. Brian said here, Matt is like an 80s movie, but Better Off Dead or Gremlins. Fun and different, and you'll love him for it.
I've never seen Better Off Dead.
I don't know if I have.
I haven't seen Gremlins in a long. That's the one where he buys the thing and it's cute. It's a Christmas present. Takes it home. Don't feed it after midnight and don't get it wet. Right. Yeah. It was the feeding after midnight that made
him evil, and the feeding
the wet made more.
The wet made more of him. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, but you're like an 80s movie.
Well, thank you.
And I think that's really what we all strive for.
Well, I would have preferred Pretty in Pink, but whatever.
We watched National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation last night with me and the boys.
Yeah.
And
uncensored version or censored version?
So it was a little awkward in that point where there's the woman, like he's having the I guess vision of her out at the pool he doesn't have yet.
Mm-hmm, right.
Christy Brinkley, right?
No. It's a Christy Brinkley lookalike, though.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like smoke show.
No,
but
Christy was in the first one, and yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
This chick's smoking hot, though.
Right. And my boys and I are like, what's about to happen here? And then I don't remember that part, so I'm like pressing the button like Dad. Yeah, I'm a great father.
There wasn't any actual nudity, though.
I don't think they did nudity there.
There's not. But it looks like there's going to be because she pops off her swimsuit. You see it flying off, and then she's in the pool and she's coming out.
Right,
and you're like, and I'm watching my boys who are watching the screen, and they're like, and I'm pressing the button like, go, 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 Dad.
At some point, Beverly D'Angelo showed her.
Father of the Year right here.
at the Christmas the vacation, and not Christmas vacation. It was like European vacation.
Pretty in pink sounds so Murphy.
You know how Europeans are. They've always got their tops off.
I just remember that because it was I was young and it was on Cinemax, and I'm like, whoa! It was one of those moments where, but I didn't have parental supervision. They were off somewhere else.
Right.
Good for you, Dad.
So we're doing that. Mom wasn't there, so usually Mom figures things out ahead of time. I made the mistake of watching Goonies with my kids a while back. Great movie, but you probably forget how crass and rough it is with the kids. And
whatever. How old's your youngest?
10. So we're getting there.
You know,
I have 5 dudes in my house between 10 and 15. 5. It's just crazy.
That's not
time.
counting you.
Yes, and I almost died in a roundabout doing driving coaching. The Matt Murphy Show's on the way. 4 hours of fun. This is Super Talk 99.7. Y'all keep on tuned.